There are so many fantastic resources for educators that it's really easy with a new piece of technology or a new program coming out or a new initiative every week to sometimes forget the basics that we need to teach our children in the classroom. So today I want to jump on here and talk about the basics and going back to listening to music and how we sometimes are missing this and why we need to ensure that we don't miss it in our curriculum. My name is Rachel Hardman and this is Passionate About Music Education. I'm going to dive straight into this episode. With all the changes that have been happening in our school, I felt that I didn't really know the new students who had arrived. So I started my lesson with a warm-up exercise where students were telling each other what their favourite music is and what they're listening to at the moment. Now you'd think that would be really easy. We expect our children to be streaming music all the time. It's there at a click of a button. There's thousands upon thousands of new videos coming on YouTube every day. So we would expect them to be able to rhyme off 10, 15 artists. And it was really showing that they couldn't do that. My students really struggled to say what kind of music they liked, what style of music, or any artist that they were really listening to, and I was quite shocked. Then I dug deeper. I'm going, well, where are you listening to music? How are you listening to music? And it was very clear that they really weren't searching much on YouTube, or they were only listening to music that maybe somebody had recommended. But we forget that in this modern day and age, that although there's thousands and thousands of tracks available, if you don't really know what you're looking for, it's really hard to find new inspirations. So where you and I may have gone to a music shop and bought CDs and gone to the jazz section or the classical section or the opera section or whatever you were interested in knowing more about and finding those artists and taking that gamble on that CD and having that excitement, it's really hard to do that on a search engine, and that is the same for bookshops and going and buy it. It's lovely to go to a bookshop and see thousands of books. It's much harder to find that on the Kindle. You have to kind of know what you're looking for. So we also talked about, are you listening to music on the radio? You're listening to music in your house, and so few had a way of playing music live in their house. They no longer have radios or DAB radios or CD players or anything that we would expect or that we as educators are used to having. So this really does mean that we have to ensure that we put listening back into our program if we're not already doing this. Why do we need to put listening back into our program? Well, how do we expect children to learn the cello or the double bass if they never hear it or see it? We're expecting them to have seen 1,000 double basses on YouTube because we presume with the amount of time they spent on technology that that's what they're going to see, and this is not the case. So I wanted to share some action points that you can put into your curriculum quickly to include more music listening exercises that will encourage them to have a much deeper awareness of different genres and styles of music and also help them to identify their own personality. We know how important styles of music are and linked with identity, particularly middle school and high school, so we have to widen that door for them. Action point 1, it's really important to put listening activities into your scheme of work, whether you are teaching general music or whether you're teaching a choral program or a band program. It's really important that students are going away and hearing those instruments in band program being played by professional musicians. If they're a beginner saxophone player, it's really important that they go and listen to classical saxophonists as well as jazz saxophonists. There's so many fantastic people out there that I'm sure you could list 10 people straight off the top of your head. But if children don't go and listen to that music and hear that music, hear the saxophone being played by a professional, how do they know what they're aiming for? So it's really important that you encourage students to listen to music, whatever curriculum you are teaching, and it needs to be in your schemes of work. It's really important that in your curriculum you also have a variety of genres and styles. Sometimes there is a danger in middle school and high school to believe that students won't be interested in classical music or jazz music or pop music, and that's not the case. You really do find that they love this music because they're not hearing it. Action point 2, when you are listening to music in the classroom, it's important to encourage them to practice listening in silence, which sounds a silly thing to say, but how often have they got the radio on in the background or YouTube in the background or the parents talking over the TV and they're not actively listening, so they're not really taking in what's going on. So really encourage that active, silent listening. Sometimes with students who are, find it hard to concentrate, putting their heads on the table, closing eyes, and really just not being distracted by anybody else in the room is a really good behavior management technique. I encourage students to do active silent listening, and I talk to them about why they need to do it, because they can't talk and hear at the same time. The brain won't work that way. And if they're talking, they're really missing all that core content of the music. I really want them to focus on the sound and really absorb it. That way you know that it's actually going in, and they're practicing listening skills, which will not just help your subject, but it will also help their subjects across the board. I don't know if you find this, but certainly over the last 20 years, children concentrating and listening to instructions has decreased, and I believe that's also happening in the fact that they're really not listening to music or watching a telly or a film in silence and really absorbing it. They're just distracted. I'm sure, actually, truthfully, if we were honest, we have the telly on and we're looking at our phone and we're distracted. We're not taking it all in. So of course children are copying what they see from their adults in their life. For action point 3, have you considered giving homework that is listening exercises? Listening to music. We feel sometimes as music educators, because there's pressure from all the other areas of the school, that our homework should always be a written task. And of course it should be a written task if it serves our subject and the scheme of work. But sometimes just giving them a listening exercise is a really important bit of homework. And even sometimes when you said it, you think that they're not going to do it, they surprise you. So this week I had been teaching in a maths classroom, and we had been listening to Danse Macabre. And it was such a shame for me because I wasn't in a room with a projector. Normally I would put the video up so they could see the instruments being played, because that's how they'll see the clarinet and saxophone and trumpet and all of that kind of stuff. I really love to put up the video so they can see the orchestra performing, but in this situation I couldn't, and I felt really bad that the students were missing out on that. So on Google Classroom I uploaded the video and went, this is what we listened to in class, I'd really love you to go and listen and watch the whole video. Of course I wasn't really expecting too many people to do it because there's no sort of written task assigned to it. And when you think that they're not doing these tasks, they really are. I had a student this week come and say to me, I watched all of that Danse Macabre. It was amazing. I loved seeing all the instruments. And so even sometimes when you're setting it or putting it on as a resource, there are students who are really going to benefit. And of course, because they've watched that, they may watch it again, or they may carry on watching other, suggestions from YouTube. So don't undervalue setting listening work as a homework task. One of my colleagues used to set a listening log every week. So she would play at the beginning of a lesson a composer of the week, and it would be going alphabetical, or a band of the week. And the students would then, for homework, have the recordings, and they would go and write a log about, the musical elements, the tempo, the instrumentation, the dynamics. And again, this is another way to bring listening into your basic music program. This is another way of ensuring that listening is included in your program, so that we're always covering those basics, not just performing and composing, but listening and analysing music. Action point 4, don't forget to use those online platforms. If you're on Google Classroom and that's where you put your homework, share those links, because it's quite easy to do. And that doesn't just have to happen for general classroom music or GCSE or A-level. This can also be for your extracurricular, your choral program, your band program. So when I'm sharing new music with my choir, for instance, it's really hard for some of them, if they're not pianists, to work out their notes. So I will always send them a recording of what they are learning so they can practice it. If I'm finding it off of YouTube, because it's a JW Pepper link and it's on YouTube, they can see obviously the words, but it also, in the column on the right, gives them a whole suggestion of other music, which I know they're going to go and listen to. So there are so many benefits of including the links within your homework or extracurricular program to broaden their musical knowledge and understanding of genres. If you really think about how you listen to music, it's changed so much over the last 20 years. And in fact, possibly, if we're truly honest, it's becoming harder and harder to play music in your home as a relaxation tool. So we need to find ways to include this in our program and ensure that children are doing this basic skill of listening to music. We know the health benefits of listening to music. We know the educational benefits of listening to music. And now we need to make sure children know how to access that in this modern day and age. I hope this video has been helpful and made you think about how you can include listening more into your programs. And I look forward to seeing you again. My name is Rachel Hardman, and this is Passionate About Music Education.